She's so poetic about everything. I fear that I may only be causing my cute little flower chinois to wilt. Does my presence in her life bring her hardship? By being the subject of her impossible dreams, do I only cause her more suffering when the seams of the artifice become exposed? I fear that I give her false hope, a false sense of security, and that it will only make things worse when I fail her. Worse, I find myself shielding her from the truth. I wanted to tell her about the patronage that I had been reluctantly forced to consider. That was my intent when I came to see her. I knew something so pivotal to my future, and therefore hers, was something I needed to discuss with her. When arriving at her family stand on the plaza, at closing time, a man who I rightfully assumed was her father was engaged in an intense-looking conversation with her. I would have stood nearby and waited for him to finish, but when he saw me, he walked out without another word. A troubled look was on his face as he passed me by, and he just shook his head at me. In retrospect, I know exactly what the look signified, and I cannot in good faith disagree with the sentiment, for I know it was out of earnest concern for his daughters, my love's well-being. But at the time, I knew not what to make of it, and was more concerned with Chine herself. Well, fathers don't always know what's right. Damn right. No smile lit her reddened face, only tears. She stared at me, quivering, light glistening off her eyes. Then she rushed towards me, and when I hugged her tightly, she let go of whatever inhibition was holding her back and started to cry with great sadness. I felt a pang in my chest to see her so, and all I could do was stroke her hair and tell her there, as she cried into my shoulder. I wish I could find her a more private place than just letting her cry in public, but her home would be more crowded, and the back room I sleep in was in use during the day. If only I still had the apartment behind the theater. At least there weren't many people about at this hour. After a while, she calmed down a little bit, or at least ran out of energy to keep up the sobbing, and I sat her down. Oh no, oh no. Oh, little flower, do you wish me to get you some tea to help you calm your nerves? Then we can talk about it, I offered. She nodded. Thanks, she said, and I was grateful, because I needed it for my own nerves as much as she. I left her alone and hurried to the nearest machine I could find in the plaza. When I returned, she didn't seem to have moved at all. I sat down next to her. Oh wow, I forgot about Chianti. I kind of miss it. Hey, I said to her, wrapping my arm over her shoulder. Hot or cold? She sniffed. Hot, please, she said. I handed her the can. She opened it, took a very long sip and sighed. Tell me about it, dear, I told her, pulling her in close. Dad wants me to get married, she said in a wavering voice. No. I feel like it's paid so little these days. It's so hard with 5 people in our one-room home. And well, look at how big I am. I practically eat enough for 2, she said, laughing awkwardly. Then she started sniffing again and took another sip from her tea. I mean, it's always been crowded at home, even before Grandma and Grandpa moved in. And I always wanted to move out anyway, but we can't afford to, I said. What we both knew very well, or we'd be drinking wine together in a restaurant instead of vending machine tea in the back of a stall. She started to cry again, and I felt another pang in my heart. My levity had only made things worse. No, don't marry some old man. You have someone who loves you. Yeah, she stammered between sobs. Dad was talking to me all. Please, just hear him out. He's a good man. I mean, the guy himself, I'm sure he's nice, but I want to be with you. I love you, I want to be with you. I held her tightly as her poor tears gripped my heart, and I wished there was anything I could do. What about the sand? Wouldn't you make more money for the family if you could still work? Even if you didn't keep any wages for your own savings, perhaps it'd be better? I asked, expecting there to be an answer for why that wouldn't help. And there was. Apparently the flower stand barely made any money these days, and what didn't go to rent instead went for plaza bribes to desperate nobles. It sounded like the only reason they had it now still was for her own sake. Maybe I'll run away. I could take my savings and just sleep behind the theater at night and try to find odd work during the day, or just something, she cried out, tears falling from her face. Do you know why this man wants to marry some girl he's never met? Do you know why? I asked. He's just as poor as us. Do you know why? Even though I'm ugly and too young and I'm just some random stranger, and there's no love or anything? Taxes, because there's some big tax break for new fathers. Taxes. I had, in fact, known. It was a recent big political issue, but I said nothing, and let her have her moment. She took another sip from her can, and suddenly crushed it in her fist. I don't want to have a kid, she stared at me with a look of absolute horror, starting to wail. I don't want to have a kid. I don't care how nice he is. I don't want to move in with some strange man and have sex with him and get knocked up and then have to raise some stupid kid, and then never see you. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to. This really hurts to read, She started to hyperventilate, and all I could do was hold her, hush her, and tell her to breathe until she calmed down a little. Maybe I'll run away, she said again, wiping her face with her sleeve. Do you think you could? If your parents were going to force you to do such a thing, would you be able to go against them? I asked her, knowing entirely that she never would. No. She said nothing, but just grabbed me tightly, and I stared at her poor swollen face. Her tear-filled eyes looked so hurt. And then I thought of my own situation. How not only could I not comfort this poor hurt girl that I had allowed to depend on me for comfort, how not only had I let her down, but how also my future was just as doomed as she was having so much trouble admitting hers was. Her only hope lay in a loveless sham marriage, mine in the graces of a private patron. Either way, our love would inevitably be torn asunder. They were such a good couple, though. At least it would offer stability, somehow escaped my lips. I had meant to think aloud like that. If that's what love's like, maybe it's better that I never knew it. She had no words. She only grabbed me tighter and started to wail loudly again. She cried a river of tears against my breast, sobbing uncontrollably, and I found myself overwhelmed by pity. I started to cry a little too, and forced myself to remain silent, lest I somehow found a way to worsen the scenario even more. Oh no, but they were so good together. Dear Diary, I can't believe she'd do that to me. I hate her. She's the worst. I hope she get what she deserves from the man she's decided to leave me for. How could she do that to me? Hate. I was at the theater to tell her my decision about... Oh geez. I just realized how badly I screwed that up for me. All because I was stupid enough to be love-struck by that stupid, selfish woman. Oh no, what am I going to do now? I was at the theater to tell her my decision about that man my parents wanted me to marry. He was so icky, I told her. He was like a dozen years older than me, and he had this beard that was just yuck. Well, I'm sure you could convince him to shave it, she said distantly. I was surprised. Oh, I think I know how this ends. Don't offend him. I could never live with someone like that. Besides, I'd have to be away from you, and I could never... I trailed off. Anyway, I told him no, I was totally uninterested, and that he should go find some girl his age instead, and maybe ask her directly instead of going around to her parents. My father was upset, but I had to, so that's the end of it. We have to break up, she said suddenly. Nothing else, nothing leading into it, just that. I don't really remember what I said. I don't think I believed her. I know I stammered a lot. Probably, what? No, don't do that. There's a patron who'd like to buy me out and take me into his house. It's something I've considered for a long time now, and I'm afraid it's come to the point where it's the only recourse I can take, she said. He's made a very generous offer, and I fear it would be unwise of me to decline it. Buy you out? What does that even mean? I asked. Are you going to move in with this man? It means I will receive a regular stipend for performing for him and his guests exclusively, and that, yes, I will live in his house and receive 3 cooked meals a day and an actual bed to sleep in, she said. I have to. We get smaller and smaller audiences every week. This just isn't tenable. I just couldn't believe it. My mind raced. I just turned down an offer like that for her sake, and she did this to me? Is it that man I saw you with before? The one you've been doing all those private shows for? The one who was all in your face and touching you and all, oh my precious A-Jung, I would be honored to slobber all over you like some gross man. Please come into my home now? I demanded. That guy from the Ryu house you said you didn't want to have anything to do with? I think she's being a little harsh, though. That isn't fair. Yes, it is him, but... She trailed off. Yeah, I bet he'll give you a bed to sleep in, I shouted. Don't say that, Chine. It's not like that, she lied. Besides, even were it like that, I no longer have the luxury of being picky. If I said no, what would I do with the theater closed down? At least you can live with your parents still. I have no such option. The man has made a kind of generous offer, and I must accept it. Really? I can't believe it, I said, crying. I thought you loved me. I thought you cared for me, but... You're better off without me anyway, she said. Then she told me. I can't really remember her exact words now, but she told me that she didn't feel as strongly about me as I did for her, and that she regretted being a crutch for me as long as she did, and that our relationship was a mistake, and that she should have done this far sooner. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Fine, I screamed at her. If that's how it is, fine. I'll get out of your life and leave you alone to your precious, kind, and generous man. I started to storm off. Wait, please, don't leave like that. Please stay, she begged. Our relationship is doomed, but it doesn't mean I didn't like being with you. Please stay one more night. I couldn't bear it if my last memory of you was a sad one. Fuck her, no! I thought her voice was always so graceful before. Right then I realized it wasn't. It was pitiful. It was always pitiful. She was trying to manipulate me. Probably like she'd done with that patron. Probably like she'd done with me before. It wasn't charming. It wasn't playful elegance. It was a pitiful lie. So I told her the truth. I hate you, I screamed at her and ran away. I don't know what to do now. I tried not to let my family see me like this, but Well, there's only a paper screen between us. I'm such a mess. I just can't believe she'd do that to me. I can't believe after I made the hard decision, she made the easy one and threw me away. Yep. Yeah, that was really painful to read. Writing this has calmed me down a little at least, and now the reality sinks in. I have nothing now. I guess all I can do now is apologize to my dad and hope that I get a second chance. I guess that's all I can do. I can't believe she'd do that to me. I hate her. I guess the Ryu family house never really changed much. I had the utmost pleasure of being invited to Ryu Kwang-soo's home to discuss business with the man. You were right, when one of the Ryu family wants to get you in their pocket, they sure don't fuck around about it. It's by far the most extravagant form of bribery I've ever witnessed. I'm pretty surprised that it's his brother that's the chief counselor, not him, because he seems a hell of a lot bolder to me. Are all the council nobility families like this? Because holy shit, I could sure get used to being in these ranks. He briefly mentioned a possible deck space deal over drinks, but mostly the evening was filled with gesturing. Hell of a job with the gesturing, though. I thought he couldn't get any crazier than when he casually mentioned busting out some vintage 4000 wine. But then he did. Instead of just some regular household servant delivering it, he got Heo A-jung herself to do it. I saw her a couple times at the Eternity before it closed down, and she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life, pretty much. Loved her performances, and she just saunters out casually, and cooks a 40-year-old bottle and kneels down like a common maid to pour it for us. It was unbelievable. How humiliating. Then she sang for us, which I'd never heard before. Needless to say, her voice was as entrancing and beautiful as you'd expect, and the wine was just as smooth. The performance went on for about an hour, singing about, well, the usual things. Lost love, passage of time, that sort of sentimental shit. The theater slogan was playful elegance, and holy shit, does she still embody that. It's a guilty pleasure, but I can't say that her singing about past romance isn't emotionally affecting. It haunts your soul. I'm pretty envious of Ryu that he can apparently just hear that kind of performance whenever he wants, like it's no big deal. Anyway, gross. Then she sat down next to me, with her legs brushing against mine, and kept pouring me more wine. I mean, I'm not stupid. I know that Ryu was just trying to seduce me with that kind of treatment. He just wants me to imagine how impressive their bribe must be. That was the point where he mentioned the possibility of getting my family some deck space that's more spacious than where we were before. Like, maybe even with a window to the stars. That's a romantic thought, that's for damn sure. I got a chance to talk to A-jung while Ryu was in the can. Mostly I just used the opportunity to gush about how big a fan I was of hers. She was very gracious in listening to me. I like that hairpin you have, I told her. It's very bold. Oh, this? It's rather ugly, wouldn't you say? She said with a delightful laugh. But I promised my first love that I'd hold on to it. Aw, she kept the hairpin. Wow. Then Ryu came back into the room and we talked about our days at Mungunghwa University. He wanted to know what things were like nowadays, and I was pretty happy to oblige with stories from my undergraduate studies. At the end of the evening, he said he'd save discussing business for next time, and that he wanted to hear more stories about his old professors. I'm not stupid enough to think that he's interested in any legitimate friendship, but if this is what my council vote is worth, man, I'll take it. They really do not do things by half measures. With regards, Counselor Tay. Time for a new... thing, I guess. Do you not have M3? Okay, M4 I guess then. is no N3. Okay. We have time for one more order of business today. Councillor O's proposed amendment of the Education Act. The text of it can be found in the third appendix of the session's agenda. I'll now leave the floor to remarks from Councillor O. Councillor O of Education. No remarks, it's just general housekeeping shit for the university. Councillor Mute, Security. Great, I'm going to abstain voting and decline to pay any more attention to this session if that's okay with you. Mute, Councillor Security. She's really different than the Mute I knew. At that time, she was 1600 years old, even older than me. Chief Councillor Smith of State. Councillor. Councillor Mute, Security. It doesn't affect security. I vote don't care. Chief Councillor Smith. Does the rest of the council object to bring it to a vote? Councillor Ryu, Captaincy. None here. His brother, Ryu Kwang-soo, was involved with bribing councillors. Imagine that. Councillor Kim, Engineering and Science. I object. I don't understand the purpose of the proposed change about language rules. Is that really necessary? Councillor O, Education. I don't think... Councillor Kim, can you explain that? Councillor O. I don't understand what they're talking about. It's just some minor changes to general requirements. Even engineers have general requirements. That's why they're called general. Councillor Mute. I don't think we need the vocabulary lesson, Councillor. Chief Councillor Smith. That's Councillor Mute. Yes, I know, out of line, withdrawn. Councillor Kim. It doesn't sound like minor changes. Councillor O. This was all requested and drafted by Mugunghwa University President O.A. Interesting. She assures me that it's just a minor change to allow for students to get more rounded education. Councillor Kim. What exactly is more rounded about forcing engineers into pointless general classes? Councillor O. Everyone already takes general classes. It's not... Councillor Lee. Pardon me, if I may. Councillor of Culture was from the Lee family. Councillor O. Certainly, I yield the floor to Councillor Lee. Councillor Lee. Oh, but learning Chinese characters is silly. As I understand it, the change is to allow general programs to include text written in Chinese characters. Is that right? Councillor O. That's what I'm told. Councillor Kim. Meaning technical students will have to go out of their way to learn pointless nonsense that doesn't have anything to do with science. Councillor Lee. Chinese characters aren't taught in public schools. Councillor O. That's right. Councillor Lee. The other councillors see where this is going, right? Yes? Does it really need to be spelled out why it would be a good thing to make the educational requirements for noble professions less accessible to any old peasant at public school? Councillor Mute. In case you haven't noticed, we have a serious problem with over-educated peasants already. They agitate for democracy and give me a headache. Making things harder for them seems like preserving the status quo to me. Wow. Whoa, Mute back then really was harsh. Councillor Lee. That was my thinking. Councillor O. It's just housekeeping regardless. Councillor Kim. I still don't... Councillor Mute. Councillor Kim, do you really feel that strongly about this? Really? Councillor Lee. If you move to vote, I'll second it. Chief Councillor Smith. Do we have a motion to vote? Councillor O. I move to vote then. Councillor Lee. Seconded. Chief Councillor Smith. The motion passes. How does the council vote? Councillor O. The Councillor of Education is in favor. Councillor Ryu. The Councillor of Captaincy is in favor. Councillor Cho. The Councillor of Agriculture is in favor. Agriculture. Councillor Mute. The Councillor of Security wants to get this over and done with. In favor. Councillor Yang. The Councillor of Justice is in favor and agrees with the lovely Councillor of Security. Yang, Councillor of Justice, was really friendly to Mute. Councillor Kim. Ugh. Chief Councillor Smith. Ugh is not a vote. Councillor Kim. Fine. The Councillor of Engineering and Science abstains. I don't care that much. Councillor Lee. The Councillor of Culture is in favor. Alright. Chief Councillor Smith. The Councillor of State is also in favor. Chief Councillor Smith. Let the record show that the vote was 7 in favor with 1 abstention. The amendment passes and will go to the President for signing. With that, I move to close council for the day to resume next Monday. Councillor Mute. Seconded, gladly. Chief Councillor Smith. From the High Council of Mugunghwa is dismissed. Oh, this is what Ute and Smith and So Young were talking about. Chief Counselor Smith, let's not waste any time getting at the biggest order of business for today, deciding on my successor for the position of Chief Counselor. Counselor Lee. Point of order, before we continue, will you be stepping down as Counselor of State at the same time? Chief Counselor Smith. Yes, consider it a complete retirement from politics. Counselor Lee. Who will be taking your position then? Chief Counselor Smith. Smith Ian Chu will be taking it. I trust there are no objections to this. No, Smith Ian Chu was the eldest son of Chief Counselor Smith. Chief Counselor Smith. Good. Moving on, are there any nominations from the floor for new Chief Counselor? Counselor Mute. I'd like to nominate the Counselor of Captaincy for the position. Counselor Kim. Wait, what? Counselor O. Counselor Lee. Counselor Yang. Seconding the lovely Counselor of Security's nomination for Ryu. The Counselor of Education was from the O family. Counselor Kim. I don't think he got along well with Mute. He was the Counselor of Engineering. What the hell's going on? Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Counselor Lee. At the risk of being gauche, I seconding my nomination. Counselor Smith. Are there any others? Counselor Joe. Nope. Joe. Counselor Kim. I'm nominating myself. Is there a second for Counselor Kim? Chief Counselor Mute. Well, this is kind of an awkward silence. Counselor Kim. Really? Counselor Milkit. I don't know how to pronounce that. I mean, I know I do, but I don't. Milk Toast. There you go. Counselor Milk Toast can get himself seconded. Not someone who actually runs something important. Counselor Ryu. Counselor Milk Toast? Okay, you're not going to call out that as out of order? Seriously? Yes, it's out of order. Let the record... Haha, wow, I always thought politics would be more civil. Let the record indicate that the Chief Counselor's remarks were prefixed by an overly dramatic sigh. This is getting awfully out of control. Counselor Kim, do you withdraw the remarks? No, I want to know what could possibly motivate anyone to nominate that man for the single highest position on the ship. It is an admittedly curious decision. Obviously, I'm not completely unbiased here, but I don't think he has the track record to support such a position. We've actually... Yang, Counselor of Justice, was really friendly to Mute. Counselor Mute, if you would. Yes, of course. I'll be blunt. Right now, the most important thing to the continued stability of this ship is how we deal with President Park and this idiotic democracy movement, right? I mean, everyone agrees with that, yeah? Therefore, our job is to undermine his actions at every turn, right? Again, nobody's arguing with that, are they? President Park was an enemy of Mute and the Council. Cute, though. Counselor Kim. How is electing Ryu as Chief Counselor going to do that? How is it not going to send a stronger message to have someone with an established record? I also don't understand the reasoning. Simple, we don't want to look like the President is our enemy. If we strongly oppose him, we only make the movement stronger. Counselor Lee, tell me what's your proposed new direction for the Council? I don't propose a new direction. I don't believe in compromising the hooligans. We need to draw a line that firmly lets the peasantry know that the High Council of the Mungungwa won't yield to their arrogance. More importantly, one that assures the noble families that actually run the ship that we won't hang them out to dry. I don't disagree with the principle. I don't like compromise either. Counselor Ryu, I'll hand this over to you. It's simple. We don't compromise. It's no new direction. It's the same direction as always. We protect the best interests of the ship and maintain the social order that's worked for centuries. Inside this room, nothing changes. Then what was Counselor Mute going on about? Inside this room, nothing changes. Outside, we're the face of reform. We're the best friend of the average man who got so excited to elect President Park. President Park will propose whatever nonsense he'll propose, and we'll say, yes, of course we'll do that, with some changes, but we're just as interested in reform as you. But inside this room, nothing changes. And that's how it's done, boys and girls, efficient and subtle. That's why Councillor Ryu is perfect. He doesn't have an established track record. We put him as chief counselor, and he says he believes in reform. They're not going to be able to argue with that. Interesting. Come on, Councillor Lee, surely you can see that this is what's appropriate for the moment. Like under any other circumstances, you know I'd happily vote for you, believe me. She keeps bringing up her age, doesn't she? I have not safeguarded the ship's security for 1,600 years just to hand it over to a bunch of fools, okay? But you know, sometimes you give them the stick, sometimes you give them the carrot. Right now we need the carrot. Then we poison the carrot. Yeah, sure, whatever. That's some kind of metaphor. But you see my point, Counselor? Who else stands with you? Counselor Yang, Counselor Ryu, anyone else? Strongly, it's why I'm stepping down. The High Council needs a new face. A real new face, not simply the same old establishment figures the peasantry already hates. It's a good argument. This is kind of boring, honestly. Oh, too bad. In that case, it doesn't look like anyone else is likely to get the 6-vote supermajority needed, then, is it? Alright, Counselor Ryu, I hope the Chief Counselor's faith in you isn't misplaced. I withdraw my nomination. Really? As a point of order, it's long past the point where we usually take a break. Is that a motion for a recess? Yes. I'll second it. Very well, we'll reconvene in 1 hour. So Ryu was chief counselor by then, I guess. Next on the list, the proposed Motherhood Credit Act. I'm tabling this one myself. You can find the text of the act in the 10th appendix of the session's agenda, as well as relevant charts and data in the 11th through 15th. We're sure burning through appendices fast. My apologies. I'll try to keep this one concise then. Since I know you've all read this one anyway, we're approaching a serious demographic problem right now. Birth rates shipwise have been declining for years. The plan, simply put, is to provide an economic incentive for families to raise children. Exactly what sort of numbers are you proposing? I feel like I'm being buried underneath a giant pile of data. How much is this credit for? Nothing's being buried, it's just thoroughness. Chief Counselor Smith wouldn't have allowed an item to be introduced with 4 appendices. His son replaced him as Counselor of State. They've been available beforehand for months. What's a bickering? I haven't read them either. I've read them. It's just unclear. What are the actual numbers? It's a complex breakdown with a number of factors. The bottom line, though, is that it will average to 20,000 silver for noble families per year, and 5,000 silver for peasant families per year. And really boring economics type stuff. Let the record show that Counselor Lee just let out a long whistle, which I'm seconding. Those are big numbers. I don't object on principle, but I would like an assurance that this isn't going to impact my department's budget. It's already stretched thin. Everybody's stretched thin. The projection makes it seem like it's going to have significant costs attached to it. Like, I'm not opposed either. I get the benefits. It's just, you know, the stability I worry about. Counselor Smith, if you would. Former Chief Counselor Smith's son was Counselor of State. Right, there's no question this will be costly. We're looking for long-term results, but certainly this is not a project that can be sustained in the long term. If you look at Appendix 14, you'll see that the project cost for the next 10 years will require a 15% tax increase. That's a lot. However, the projection also shows that with the estimated population increase, and this is being conservative, don't worry, we'll see an even payout after about 22 years, then a significant increase. I don't really get it. How does that work? Appendix 15 is a report by the Mugunghwa University Department of Economics. You'll find that it explains thoroughly. Certainly, Counselor, but humor me. How does it work? Well, basically, when the population goes up, it means the workforce increases, which means there's more people to do more jobs, so there's an increase in tax revenue overall, but a decrease in government labor costs, which is always the pain in the ass. Pretty much. Really? I'm sure the Council of Education will vouch for the quality of the university's findings. Yes, of course, I'll stand by it. Very well then. Okay, but here's my problem. If you increase taxes on the lower class by 15%, there will be riots. Like, my office will be on fire within a week. It turns out that costs even more of the money that's already tight to put out. We're talking actual straight-out riots. It's a security problem. But the benefit would be... I'd get what the benefit would be, it just doesn't offset the cost of, you know, offices on fire. More workers would be a pretty good thing, though. Are you really going to exercise the security veto over this? If I may, a possible solution might be to offload this tax increase onto the noble classes. This is a terrible idea. Just to hell with the whole act, I say. No, it's a good idea. Peasants off having children is something I am all for. Peasants raising happy families do not set fire to anything. To be perfectly clear, I am very much in favor of the not setting fire to things option, okay? The Council of Security may be over-dramatizing a little. Don't sound so certain. We need to find out some sort of consolation for the refusal to carry out President Park's insane school credit idea. This just addresses a serious social issue as well as undercuts Park. If it's not this, it'll have to be something else. I don't care. I'm not voting for any act that'll require a tax increase, let alone one supported by noble families alone. Yes, me neither. This is certainly going nowhere fast. Counselor Smith? Yeah? I'm sure something can be changed to address the Counselor's concerns, right? Well, we could probably just take the funding from the surplus. It'll all balance out in the end anyway. I didn't think to submit any numbers on that, though. Assuming the Counselor of State is correct, and no new taxes were levied on either the peasantry or noble classes, would anyone object? It'd be okay by me. Assuming the Counselor of State is correct, no, there would be no objection. Yes, fine, whatever, I don't care. I would have no problem. But they all said, great. Counselor Smith, please provide a new report on the feasibility of surplus financing for the Motherhood Credit Act. The item is tabled until then. Moving on.